Hey, so first things first, I just want to select the color and show you that the color is wrong because the color is white. We're shading white hair, not white hair. So what we want is a color that is slightly off-white. I preferably like to use something that's a little bit bluish, but you don't need to do that. And then as for the lines, I like to use something a little softer like a cool gray instead of black because I feel like the black is a bit too bold. Alright, so those are our colors. Don't use white, use like an off grayish thingy, okay? Like a cool gray. Now I want you to create a new layer, go to your bucket settings, and change up your bucket settings a little bit. You could follow what I'm doing on screen. Okay, now getting our cool gray and just tapping it on so that the lines all thin out with each other. You might need to adjust the bucket settings from time to time depending on how close your colors are all. Yeah, okay? It's something that might take just a tiny bit of poking around and practice. So here, I am just going to use this brush, which isn't really special, and I also have Force Fade on, okay? I have Force Fade on. And by the way, that QR code that you see on the screen, that is the brush that I used, okay? And now with an airbrush, I'm just tapping on a little bit of a purple, and then a little bit of the skin color in the middle, okay? It helps to give things a bit of a gradient, alright? It makes things just better. And then I just tap white gently on the top. Please be very gentle with it. Okay, and now I am getting this brush, which is on the screen, okay, on a multiply layer. Alright, the multiply layer is multiplied and it's clipped to the base color. Now I'm just using the magic wand to select little areas. Also, I noticed that I don't go very in-depth with a lot of these tutorials because holy crap, this video is already 15 minutes long. So I was thinking of just live streaming certain tutorials and showing you more in-depth. However, those might only be available to channel members, which is going to be coming very, very soon. Or maybe it's already here by the time I release the video. Anyways, so just following my usual formula of focusing on each lock of hair and just creating a line that goes from the bottom of the lock to the top of the lock, okay? I explained this multiple times before, and as I said, this is more of a run-through of the process of everything rather than an in-depth video on how to specifically do all this. Okay, and now I'm just using a smaller version of the brush to try to connect all the locks of the hair to the very top, or just to connect them to wherever they seem to already be going. Since I assume you're using Gacha, there should already be guidelines, which are the lines that you see on your hair, and you're just going to connect them a little bit higher up. This is also something that takes a little bit of judgment that can only be found through practice in my experience, but you know what? If you look at references, that can also help you get an idea, okay? Try to connect large chunks to the top of the head instead of connecting each individual lock, or else it'll look like a giant spider attacking your character, and we don't want that. We want to protect our characters. I like how I say that when I know that you guys probably make a lot of tragic backstories for your OCs. If you do that, damn. It also helps to have different thicknesses for your lines. It makes everything just look 10 times better. Alright, there is diversity in thicknesses. Some things are thick, some things are thin, but all of them are beautiful, especially when they come together, okay? So, now I'm just doing a darker color on the back hair, just so that I can give things a little dimension and you could tell it's the back hair. Also because it looks like a weird gross blob just sitting there since the rest of the hair is fluffy, except for that. Now I'm just blending it a little bit with a smudge brush because I don't know how to blend. Making a new layer, setting it to multiply again. Then I am just going over the little air vents, hair vents, I guess I'll just call them. the little vents in the hair and the other parts that I feel like should pop out a little more. Basically, I am now layering the shadows, because this is how I shade. I shade with more of a mid-tone, and then I go darker and darker and darker until I think it looks good enough. Okay, and just want to clarify something before I get some annoying comments. Just like on the black hair tutorial, people said, that's not black, that's dark blue. And just like with this video, I assume people are going to be like, that's not white, that's silver or something. Well, if you look at real life, nothing is completely black really, and nothing is completely white really, especially when it comes to hair. So yeah, it's supposed to be off-white. It's not supposed to be completely white, because if it's white, then I can't add highlights to it because it's literally as light as it can possibly be. Alright, so just wanted to clarify that. Also, when I use a darker color, I try to go very lightly with it, especially by using a thin brush, because I want to try to keep this hair looking as light as possible. And if I continuously add more and more dark shades of gray or silver, keep in mind this isn't gray, this is cool gray, meaning that it has a bit of a cool tone to it, which cool colors are blues, purples, you know, such like that, alright? So it's usually nice to have a little bit of hue in your hair. It just helps bring life to it, and it helps make it a little bit easier, in my opinion, to not make just gray old man hair. I mean, if you're old and you have gray hair, that's okay, but I don't want that on my character. I am now going to speed up this next part of the video because it's really repetitive, but I still want to show you the process. So I'm just, as I said previously, just taking a darker color again and again and layering it until I'm satisfied, and I think there's enough contrast between everything to satisfy me, because yes. Alright, so that's that. As I said, I'll probably live stream or do longer form tutorials eventually, but for now, I represent you this piece of shit. Just kidding, I'm amazing. Just kidding, that's a joke. I'm not really a narcissist, I just pretend I am. It helps me cope. Okay, now we are going to just make these big bloppy lines. I'm just selecting colors that are on the hair. Just a very, very light gray. And then just in the middle of each lock of hair, I just create these lines. Why? Because I see it in anime sometimes, and I think it looks cool. Alright? It also helps break a giant shiny part in the hair, so it makes everything a lot more detailed and pretty. So I'm just making the color a little bit darker, but when I make things darker, I also make sure to make them more saturated so that I don't make my art look lifeless. Yeah. So just going in the middle with this, you can take your time with it, and please pay good attention to each lock of hair. There's usually a break between all of these little bloppy squares. You can tell where to break the bloppy squares when there is a separation between each lock of hair. I'm just smudging the bottom of the bloppy squares, blotchy square, I don't know what to call them, just so that I can give them a nice softer look, and then I'm also smudging them downwards just a tiny bit, because I think that makes it look really cool. Alright? So you can just take your time with this, and also try to adjust the size of your brush depending on where you are smudging things down. So the smaller the lock of hair, the smaller your brush should be, okay? Making a new layer, and then we're setting it to overlay. As you see, I'm just color picking the colors that are already on the canvas. And then I am creating, same with the bloppy lines, except I am going a lot smaller and trying to be a little more particular with this. Now see, this is why we don't make the hair completely white, because if we make it completely white, what color will the highlights be? Wrong, there won't be any highlights because the hair would be white and you can't see anything, which is why we make it a cool gray. Alright? Make sure that you keep your cool gray very, 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 very light. Alright, I usually try to steer away from completely white or completely black in drawings, but that's not a golden rule that you should always follow. It ultimately depends on what you're drawing. Okay, so I know that there's a lot of videos out there that tell you don't draw in completely black or white, but you need to take into account that they're probably talking about a specific style, and that it shouldn't dictate the way you do your art. Once again, just want to clarify that there aren't really any rules to art. There are just principles that you should follow if you want a particular look, but art is about freedom, expression, and I don't know, just the general enjoyment of it. So if you find some of these rules restricting to you and it doesn't make things very fun, then don't follow it. It's okay. You don't need to do what everyone else is doing. Just do what you enjoy and do what you love. So making a new layer, setting it to overlay again, and then I'm getting a dark purplish with an airbrush. A very dark purple. Try not to overdo it. I just like to do this because I want to create a bit more contrast in values, which is basically I wanted more dark darks and I wanted more bright brights. Also, I wanted to use a bit of a tannish or a pink color just to light things up a little bit, and I think it looks cool that way because it kind of gives a bit of a weird rainbow effect and a bit of a like glowy effect. So yeah, just going over all the highlights, and yeah, it looks nice. So making a new layer and then using this brush, QR code on screen. Wow, I'm really good at talking. I have force fade on, and this is all on a new layer. It's very important you do this on a separate layer. I will tell you later. Now we are just creating hair strands. Please make sure not to go too extreme with this. The trick to making it look good, I believe, is by having having different sizes of hair strands, thicker ones and thinner ones. Alright, I just went ahead, skipped over. I duplicated the hair strand layer. I'm now using a filter, stroke outer, and just trying to match the color to the outline of the hair. It looks bad now, but it'll look good in a second, I promise you. It's so much easier to do this than to actually draw each thing individually. And then I just use an eraser to erase the beginning of the hair strand. So now look at that. That is literally so easy and so fast. Okay? Isn't that super fun? Alright. I just discovered this as I was doing the tutorial as a little bit of an experiment, which is also one reason why I like doing these tutorials, is I always try to do something new or something that can help me, and in an attempt to help you, I help myself. So that's good for me. Making a new layer, and then just going to add. I also just turned off the background real quick so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. And then use an airbrush, and I use a bright red just on the face because I like a nice glowy effect. And then using a pale purple just on the highlights to make things glow a little more. I really wanted a glowy effect, and I want things to be a little bit lighter because in all honesty, everything looks a bit dark and silverish. Making a new layer, putting it on overlay, and doing the same thing that I did earlier. We're making the darker dark, and making the dark darker, and making the light things lighter. I'm just clipping it to the base color of the hair because I think it looks better that way. I'm also changing the opacity. So just going over and making it as shiny and as glowy as I think should be. Alrighty, and we're pretty much at a close here. Just doing some light cleaning up, and then we are done. So, and just a little reminder, please don't be discouraged if this didn't work for you. It also does take a specific skill level, so it's not like absolute beginners that don't know how to do anything can do it, really. This is maybe for more mid-ranged people. So thank you so much for watching, and see ya!